Have you ever wondered what it would be like if the world's economy collapsed overnight? Welcome to the reality of the 1920s, a time when the world was riding the wave of economic prosperity, with business booming and the stock market soaring. Money flowed freely and the future seemed brighter than ever. But as the decade neared its end, the bubble was on the brink of bursting. On October 29, 1929, a day that would forever be etched in history as Black Tuesday, the stock market plunged into freefall. Businesses shuttered, personal income plummeted, and unemployment rates skyrocketed. An era of economic depression had dawned, triggered by the Wall Street crash, leading to widespread failures and falling profits. The prosperity of the Roaring Twenties had given way to the despair of the 30s. And so, the world spiraled into what would be known as the Great Depression. As the world grappled with the shock of Black Tuesday, things went from bad to worse. The aftershocks of the stock market crash were felt around the globe, with economies teetering on the brink of disaster. But the distress didn't stop there. March 1930 brought a new blow with the passing of the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. This legislation, meant to protect American businesses and farmers by raising import duties, instead worsened international trade and deepened the economic downturn. Countries retaliated with their own tariffs, causing global trade to plummet by more than 50%. Then, in March 1931, the banking crisis began. Numerous banks collapsed, unable to withstand the economic strain. This led to a loss of savings for countless citizens, further reducing consumer spending and contributing to the downward spiral. The financial system was in shambles, businesses were failing, and unemployment was on the rise. The world was in a state of economic chaos and recovery seemed far off. In the midst of despair, there were attempts to alleviate the suffering. The Hoover Dam project, initiated in June 1932, was a beacon of hope, providing much-needed employment opportunities. But the real game changer came in March 1933, with the inauguration of Franklin D. Roosevelt as President of the United States. His New Deal programs were a beacon of hope in the darkness, aiming to alleviate the effects of the Depression. These programs focused on three main goals: relief for the unemployed and poor, recovery of the economy to normal levels, and reform of the financial system to prevent a repeat depression. In June 1934, another significant stride was taken with the establishment of the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. This organization was tasked with regulating the stock market and preventing future crashes, aiming to restore investor confidence and stabilize the economy. Despite these efforts, the Great Depression was far from over. Behind the economic figures and political maneuvering, the Great Depression was a time of profound human struggle. As the weight of financial ruin bore down on the nation, makeshift towns, known as Hoovervilles, sprang up across the country. Named after President Herbert Hoover, these shantytowns were stark symbols of the widespread poverty that swept through the cities, offering refuge for the homeless and the destitute. In the heart of the nation's capital, a different kind of struggle was brewing. The Bonus Army, a group of World War I veterans, marched on Washington, D.C. in 1932, demanding early payment of a bonus promised for their wartime service. Their plea was met with force, as the military dispersed the movement, sparking public outrage and further deepening the national crisis. Meanwhile, the Great Plains were battling an environmental disaster of epic proportions. The Dust Bowl, a period of severe dust storms, ravaged the land, crippling agriculture and exacerbating the already dire economic hardship in the region. Yet, in the face of adversity, the American spirit remained unbroken. The Depression left an indelible mark on the culture, with literature, art, music, and film reflecting themes of poverty, struggle, and resilience. Women, too, played a crucial role, stepping into the workforce in larger numbers to support their families, thereby challenging traditional gender roles. But not everyone was given a fair chance at survival. Many Mexican immigrants and Mexican Americans were forcibly deported during the Depression, in a misguided government effort to free up jobs for Americans. The farming communities, the backbone of America's food supply, were hit particularly hard. With low crop prices, drought, and looming foreclosures, their struggle was a constant reminder of the human cost of the Depression. In an attempt to alleviate some of the suffering, the Civilian Conservation Corps, a New Deal program, provided employment opportunities to millions of young men. They were put to work on conservation projects, such as reforestation and soil conservation, providing them with wages, training, and a glimmer of hope in those dark times. These stories paint a vivid picture of life during the Great Depression. In the midst of the turmoil, the wheels of recovery started to turn. As the nation grappled with the effects of the Great Depression, the government took decisive action. In August 1935, the Social Security Act was passed. This landmark legislation established a system of old age benefits, unemployment insurance, and aid to dependent children. It was a significant step towards safeguarding the American people against the economic uncertainties of the future. Meanwhile, in the rural corners of the country, a quiet revolution was taking place. The Rural Electrification Administration, or REA, was established in May 1936. This initiative aimed to bring electricity to rural areas, transforming lives and opening up new opportunities for growth and development. However, the path to recovery was not a smooth one. In May of 1937, the nation was hit by a recession. The economic gains that had been made were suddenly under threat, and the shadow of the Great Depression loomed large once again. It was a stark reminder that recovery was a process, not an event, and that the nation still had a long way to go. Yet, as the decade drew to a close, a global event would prove to be an unexpected catalyst for change. In September 1939, World War II began in Europe. This led to increased industrial production in the United States, as the nation geared up to support the war effort. The surge in production helped to stimulate the economy and marked a turning point in the recovery from the Great Depression. The world had survived the Great Depression, but its impact would linger for generations to come.